So, let's begin. The old adage, "Honesty is the best policy," is something we grew up hearing. It instilled in us the importance of truthfulness and integrity. Yet life often presents us with situations where honesty may not be the most advantageous choice. For instance, in professional settings, many of us have found ourselves needing to conceal our lack of experience or knowledge to avoid appearing incompetent. In such moments, we strategically choose to withhold the truth, opting instead to project an image of confidence and capability. Even in personal relationships, we occasionally engage in white lies to spare someone's feelings or maintain harmony. While these instances might seem harmless, they raise an intriguing question. Are there circumstances where honesty could be detrimental? Where keeping quiet or even lying could lead to better outcomes? As it turns out, the concept of honesty has its limitations, especially when applied universally. Renowned psychologist Dr. Daniel Gilbert, through his extensive research on decision-making, highlights that honesty isn't always the optimal approach. In fact, he posits that different situations call for different strategies, and sometimes being dishonest could be the smarter choice. To illustrate this point, consider a scenario where you're torn between two job offers. One promises a higher salary, but the working hours are long and demanding. The other offers a slightly lower pay, but the work environment seems more balanced and enjoyable. If pressed to choose, honesty might lead you to decline the better-paying job due to your preference for a healthier work-life balance. However, if you were to lie, saying you'd be happy to work longer hours for a higher salary, you might end up in a position that pays well but leaves you overworked and dissatisfied. In another scenario, imagine being a job interviewer assessing two equally qualified candidates. One candidate, during the interview, reveals a significant life event, like the recent passing of a spouse. On the surface, this might seem like an irrelevant detail, but it touches upon the candidate's emotional resilience and ability to cope with stress. This information, while shared voluntarily, might lead the interviewer to make a different hiring decision. Therefore, in this case, the candidate's decision to be honest could inadvertently work against them. Dr. Gilbert explains that the optimal strategy involves carefully considering the consequences of honesty and dishonesty in each situation. This principle holds true across various aspects of life, from personal decisions to professional choices to relationships. Honesty becomes less of a blanket principle and more of a nuanced tool to be used strategically depending on the context. How does this relate to the statement, "Silence is golden"? Well, both concepts share a common thread: understanding when it's advantageous to hold back. The golden rule here is to exercise caution in what you reveal. Consider the potential ramifications of your words and whether it's truly necessary to voice every thought or opinion. Sometimes silence can prevent misunderstandings, preserve relationships, or help you avoid unnecessary conflicts. It's about being thoughtful, not just truthful. For instance, think of a friend who confides in you about their problems at work. You might feel the urge to share this information with others out of concern, but doing so could violate their trust and potentially escalate the situation. In such cases, discretion and empathy can be the better approach, allowing your friend to navigate their challenges without the added burden of a breach of confidence. This principle also applies to expressing disagreement. In situations where your opinion differs from that of others, it might be wiser to remain silent rather than voicing dissent. By choosing not to speak up, you can maintain harmony, conserve your energy, and avoid potential conflicts. This doesn't imply a need for compliance, but it does suggest that not every disagreement requires an argument. Moreover, the idea of silence being golden extends to controlling your emotions. When faced with anger, frustration, or other intense feelings, it can be beneficial to pause, breathe, and choose not to react impulsively. By mastering your emotional responses, you prevent hasty decisions or hurtful statements that could later be regretted. Furthermore, in a world where personal branding and self-promotion are prevalent, it's crucial to recognize the value of staying quiet. Continuously seeking attention or validation can be draining and ultimately counterproductive. There's a quiet confidence in knowing your worth without needing to constantly proclaim it. It's in the stillness that creativity often blossoms. Many of history's most innovative ideas are born not during boisterous discussions, but in moments of quiet contemplation. By quieting the noise, you create space for inspiration to strike and for your inner voice to be heard. Of course, this doesn't advocate for an existence devoid of communication or engagement. Rather, it suggests a mindful approach to speaking up. Think before you speak. Consider the potential impact of your words and the value of what you choose to hold back. However, it's essential to recognize that the concept of silence has its limitations. In certain situations, speaking up is not just advisable, it's crucial. For example, if you witness injustice, harassment, or any form of wrongdoing, remaining silent could contribute to the perpetuation of these issues. It's in these moments that using your voice to speak out against injustice becomes a responsibility. Similarly, if someone you care about is in harm's way, your silence could inadvertently put them at further risk. Knowing when to speak up and when to stay quiet is a nuanced skill that comes with experience and maturity. As children, we learn to use our voices to express our needs and opinions. We start speaking, asking questions, and engaging with the world around us. As we grow, we become more aware of the impact our words can have. We understand that honesty is important, but we also begin to grasp the value of tact and diplomacy. There are instances where honesty could hurt someone deeply or escalate a conflict. At this stage, we learn that sometimes it's kinder to use euphemisms or to avoid discussing certain topics altogether. Moreover, we realize that not every opinion needs to be voiced, and that listening is as important as speaking. In fact, many would argue that it's in our ability to listen attentively that true maturity lies. It's also during this phase of development that we encounter situations where speaking up is not just a choice, but a necessity. If we witness bullying or any form of mistreatment, we begin to understand that staying silent could condone such behavior. Thus, we start speaking out against injustice, advocating for what is right. As we enter adulthood, the complexity of our interactions increases. We navigate professional environments where our careers are at stake, where diplomacy and strategic communication are vital. We form more complex relationships where emotions run high and where our words can significantly affect others. It's in these situations that the true value of silence becomes apparent. We learn that being strategic about what we reveal not only protects us, but can also help us achieve our goals. We understand that sometimes it's better to wait before making a decision, and that thinking before we speak can prevent many misunderstandings. However, the journey doesn't end here. With age and experience, we continue to refine our approach to silence and honesty. We become more attuned to the emotions of those around us and better at gauging when our words might cause pain or division. We also become more comfortable with silence, finding solace in it, using it for introspection and creativity. And finally, towards the later stages of life, we often reach a place of contentment with our choices. We come to terms with our past decisions and find peace with the outcomes, whether positive or negative. We recognize that life is full of trade-offs and that every choice has its own set of consequences. Through our experiences, we learn that honesty and silence are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they complement each other. Being honest about our thoughts and feelings while knowing when to keep quiet becomes a powerful combination. It allows us to maintain authenticity without causing unnecessary harm or disruption. The concept of honesty is the best policy serves as a solid foundation in our younger years, instilling in us the values of truthfulness and integrity. However, as we mature and our understanding of the world deepens, we realize that life is more nuanced. Recognizing when to stay quiet or even employing strategic honesty becomes an equally important part of personal and professional growth. By understanding the limitations of absolute honesty, we can navigate life's complexities with greater wisdom and finesse. So here's the question I want to leave you with. When in your life have you found it better to be dishonest or to stay quiet? What valuable insights or lessons have you gained from those experiences? Share your stories and insights in the comments below. Your experiences could resonate with many, offering support, understanding, or even new perspectives. Remember, your silence is golden, but your experiences have the power to illuminate the path for others.